subject of the practice of meditation through Samatha Vipassana. The word Samatha refers to calmness, tranquility. Vipassana is insight, the development of insight, to see things in a special manner. How to see things in terms of the characteristics of existence, in terms of anicca or change, dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, and anatta or non-self. The practice that we are most familiar at this time, the anapanasati, breathing in and breathing out. Some people seem to say that the practice of anapanasati is only a method of samatha. This is not right. Because when you watch your breath as you breathe in and breathe out, if you focus your attention on one point, then it becomes samatha. When you turn and switch to observe the breath as you breathe in and breathe out in the form of the breath rising and falling, then it becomes vipassana. Understand? But it's very clearly mentioned in the teachings of the Buddha, according to the Noble Eightfold Path. The eighth factor, Samma Samadhi. Samma Samadhi is defined as that perfect concentration, full, complete concentration, which involves the first, second, third, and fourth absorption, or jhana. So, the method which we are going to talk to you about will be utilizing this method of concentration using anapanasati, breathing in, breathing out, first to develop samadhi, develop samma samadhi, to have the right or to have the perfect, complete concentration. For that, what we do is we focus our attention on one point, on one area, just above the upper lip. The most obvious spot where you are able to observe the breath going in and out. But we do not observe, we do not fix a physical point. In other words, not to try to observe the touch of the breath. Because when you bring your attention around the tip of your nostrils, you will naturally become aware of some kind of feeling. The touch of the breath around that area, and also sometimes it becomes a bit numb, sometimes it becomes warm, you can feel that. But if you go on to observe the feeling around that area, the feeling which is conditioned by your breathing in and out, what going to happen when your breath becomes subtle. When your breath becomes very subtle, as if you cannot feel the breath any longer, then what happens? Then your mind, which is so conditioned to observe, wanting to observe the breath in and out, you naturally will tend to force your breath, take deeper breath, to see the breath in and out. Then you start developing tension. So, what we advise is that you focus your attention on one point. It's a mental image that you create around that area, so that you are able to observe the breath as if the breath enters and leaves through that point. It's a mental image that you create, so that even if your breath becomes very subtle and you lose the feeling of this breath, your mind, you can still focus on that point. Your mind can still remain in focus. That's what you call one-pointedness, ekagrata. So, we do these things. First, bringing the attention, watching the breath in and out, focusing it at one point, just above the nostril. And then, any thoughts, any distraction that arises in your mind, you just dispel them and return your attention to the breath. Now again, your mind is so used to running here and there. So much so, if you condition your mind to fix your attention at one point, your mind will definitely rebel. Your mind will not want to do it, because it will jump here and there. So we have given the mind two things to watch: the breathing in and breathing out. So the mind should be quite happy about it. You've got two objects to catch: breathing in and breathing out. So we keep that attention on one area, in and out, in and out. Any thoughts, any distraction, any feelings that arises, as soon as we become aware that the mind has gone out, the mind has wandered off from the point of concentration, then we mindfully bring back again the attention to the breath, in and out. So, but if you feel very great, some great strain or stress in any part of your body, then very mindfully adjust your position quietly, so that you don't have to suppress the great, you are not in great pain and stress. But don't do that too often. Perhaps in one sitting, you are a beginner, we allow you to do once or twice. The determination that you must make, otherwise you start moving here and there. Because you would soon realize that in whatever position, in whatever posture you sit, it's not going to be satisfactory. The pain is going to arise. Therefore, confront and observe it. And bring back your attention when you are able to concentrate, where your mind is able to dwell on one point, that one concentrated point, no more pain. You will overcome your pain. So, what we do is that if you can sit, practice little by little, start with 15 or 20 minutes, and progress up to 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And if you can sit quietly, your mind is in focus, you have awareness, breathe in and out. Not only concentration. You can concentrate at one point, but you must make your mind alert so that you observe in and out of the breath. Observing the breath in and out helps your mind to become alert. Otherwise, you get into deep concentration, but you do not know what's happening. There is concentration, but no awareness. So develop the concentration with awareness. You are aware, clear, your mind is clear, your mind is alert. Whatever happens, you are aware of it. Whatever you see, whatever you hear, whatever you smell, whatever you taste, whatever touch, sensation that arises or thought that arise, as soon as you become aware of it, you return your attention to the object of meditation. Then when you stay there for a period of 30 to 45 minutes, if you can stay, keep your mind, sustain your attention there for that period without distracting thoughts. There may be a few thoughts that come and then goes off very quickly. And you know, having been able to concentrate that period, you will find there is a build-up of concentration around that area. And this is your mental concentration. Then that mind, that consciousness, you will observe that consciousness rising in a vertical direction, rising up, 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 up. How it rises varies with individuals. Sometimes shoots up. Sometimes they go very slow motion. Sometimes zigzagging. But whatever it is, there is a definite characteristic of the developing mind. Characteristic of the mind that is developing concentration is that it will move up, up. You will feel the something moving up. At that stage, after you are able to sit at different sittings, you can sit for half an hour to 45 minutes, then you find these things coming up, 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 up. It may be even shorter periods after certain practice. Then, when you begin to see and begin to become aware of this development taking place, then you realize that your mind is now matured enough. Your concentration is now matured to get into absorption or jhana. So after you have developed that, you are able to sit for 30, 45 minutes, and you are confident, then in your next sitting, just spend 5 or 10 or 15 minutes just breathing in and breathing out through the nostrils and focusing at one point. And if there are no thoughts disturbing you, then you just make a determination. Make adhisthana or resolution. You can strengthen this resolution by thinking of the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha, paying homage to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. And then tell yourself, if I have developed my concentration sufficiently to enter the jhana or absorption, let me now enter the first jhana, the first absorption. And then fix your attention on one point. And then see what happens. Observe. You will observe a vertical rise, vertical movement of your mind going up, 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 up. And then suddenly it will settle at a certain level. It will settle. Suddenly you feel still and quiet. At that point where you feel this quietness and settling down, your mind has settled down, you take another determination. I will stay in this state for 5 minutes. Don't have to look at your watch. Your mind by now is pretty well conditioned by time. About 5 minutes. Then, after about that duration, you find your mind start to waver again. Then take another determination. In case this mind is still wanting to go up, you do not allow it to go up. But you take a determination that I will now return to the normal functioning mind. That means you bring your mind down, your consciousness, to that level of normal consciousness that you are able to observe, you are able to experience the pain, the tension and so on. Just spend a few minutes there and then again determine, I will now enter the first absorption again and then observe what happens. A similar experience, you may experience something similar to what you have experienced first. Then suddenly when it's quiet, make it the determination to stay there for another 5 minutes. Then bring down your mind again to the normal functioning level. Few minutes, and then determine again to go up to the first absorption. Stay there for 5 minutes and come down. Repeat this process again and again until you yourself are fairly confident that this is my normal level, this is the first jhana. You yourself must be confident about that you are not conditioning, you are not imagining it. So for that purpose, you can repeat in one sitting 5 or 6 times. 5 minutes each time. Not too long. But make sure before you come down, make sure before you get out of your meditation to make that determination, I will now come down to the normal functioning mind. If you don't come down and you immediately get up sometimes to answer the call of telephone or somebody comes and immediately wakes you up. When you are in samadhi, when your mind is pitched up to a high level and you immediately come out, then you may get a little bit tension. We call it samadhi headache. Yes. You may get a little bit headache, you may get a little bit tension because you have not brought down your mind to the normal functioning level. Of course, we can remove that samadhi headache without any Panadol, without anything. Just go quietly, determined. Now I'll bring my mind down to normal functioning levels. Close your eyes and slowly open your eyes and be aware. Be aware. Up down to normal. Yes. So when you are quite proficient in getting in and out first jhana, then you try to stay in the first absorption for 10 minutes and then for 15 minutes. Stay longer period, up to about 10, 15 minutes. After that, when you feel that while staying in that level for 10, 15 minutes, you feel now all the time your mind is focused on one point. Then you will find that energy, you will find the consciousness rising higher, higher, higher. Then you know your mind is now matured to go beyond the first jhana. Then sit in one sitting, 5-10 minutes, get into the first jhana, stay there for 5 minutes, then determine to get up to the second jhana. I will get into the second absorption. Then you should be able to see the mind rising up and then reaching a plateau, another plateau. Determine there, I will now stay in this level for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, come down to the first jhana, stay for a few minutes, then come down to the normal functioning mind, stay for a few minutes. Then again go up to the first jhana, stay for a few minutes. Then go up to the second jhana, stay for 5 minutes. Come down to the first and to the normal. Then again the first to the second, stay for longer period of time. Like this you do from the normal, zero level, to the first, the second, the first, to the zero level, normal. Then after you are able to do that, then go on from the normal to the first, the second, and to the third, then to the fourth. But the third and the fourth are very close. So before you determine to take, before you take the determination to get into the fourth jhana, you should try to stay in the third jhana for longer periods of about 15 to 20 minutes. So this is the process, this is the technique by which you can condition your mind, concentrated states of mind, and get into absorption. Remember that these mental absorptions are conditioned by you, by your own mind. Understand? How do you condition it? You just don't sit down, watch the breath, breathing in and out, in and out. There is no conditioning. When you start observing that concentration coming up, maturing, then you make that determination. That determination is a conditioning factor. In other words, you program your mind to get into the first level. It gets to the first level. You may ask, many beginners will ask, how do I know this first level? How do we know the first level? You practice it, you will know it. If you don't know it, keep on practicing until you know it. Because if you give me this glass of water, this glass of drink, I tell you, I drink it, sweet. If you ask me, how sweet is this? I say, you taste it for yourself. I cannot describe it. However, there are certain criteria, there are certain characteristics of this jhana. That's the beauty. You live in an era, in a time when the Dhamma is still flourishing. Because the Buddha has explained very clearly the characteristics of this jhana. It is said that these jhanas, the first jhana, the first absorption, has 5 jhana factors. 5 factors. What are these 5 factors? Vitaka, vichara, piti, sukham, ekagata. This is Pali. Vitaka means application, initial application of thought. Vichara means sustained application. Piti. Piti means rapture. That is a sense of satisfaction. Just at the threshold of bliss, happiness. Then sukham is happiness, bliss. Not the kind of bliss that produces sounds and laughter. Some people think that happiness gets excited, laugh. No, not necessary. This sukham is more of a very subtle kind of happiness, the peace within you that eases out any tension that arises, that have arisen. Sukham. There is kaya sukham, chitta sukham. Kaya sukham is after you sit for a little while, when you get into this absorption, you will find that the painful sensation, the stress that you have developed, slowly begin to ease out. Ease out. You feel now relaxed. You are under control. Your body is now under control. There may be slight tension while you're getting into the depth of the first jhana. You can still, after you are stabilized, the absorption, no more. Body is totally at ease. Your mind too, now no more running here and there. Your mind become calm, become peaceful. That's how you have sukha. Kaya sukham, chitta sukham. Body and mind now in harmony and relaxed, at ease. Then ekaggata is one-pointedness. These 5 factors, they are called jhana factors. They are present in the first state of absorption, the first level of mental absorption. That means to say that you can still feel your breath. because there is still application of thought, you still sustain your breath at one point, and then your mind is in focus, and then you experience piti, you experience this sensation of piti is this rapturous kind of sensation, feeling. Different people may experience differently. So don't try to listen to what others have experienced and try to think that you also must get that kind of experience. Some people experience tears falling down, but the necessary condition is that there would be a kind of enthusiasm to go on to practice. Okay? If the tears fall down because it's very painful, then it's not piti. Right? But when you begin to see that your body is now becoming more and more upright, and you feel some kind of life, you feel that, and calm and peaceful. And even if people come to wake you up, you say, wait, you don't want to get up. Then we know you are enjoying. So that is the kind of a characteristic, the quality of piti, of that rapturous feeling. Sometimes your body tend to move a little bit. Don't go and cling on to that movement and then you start moving violently. Sometimes your body tends to become like bubbles and, expanding. So if you are not aware of this condition, you get afraid. You become frightened and suddenly you open your eyes and think that you are exploding or something. Sometimes you become smaller, like zooming in like this. If you are not aware of it, you think you become frightened also. And then you immediately get up, then you break your development, the progress. So just be aware. That is why a little knowledge like this may be useful for you, so that in your sitting, when you experience any kind of sensation, don't be afraid, right? Remember, always when you take refuge in the Buddha is one who is an expert in sitting down. Whenever you see a Bodhi tree, whenever you come and see the Samadhi Buddha, please remember the determination that the Buddha had taken. This is what people do. They sit quietly until first one start stretching and start what you call breaking the knuckles, quack. Then you will see another one start. Because now they say, no, they are not the first one. No. I think you all do that also. This is called a very lukewarm, meditating and sitting in a very lukewarm manner. You don't get too very far with that. Determine, sit down, pay your homage properly to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Take the Buddha as an example. This image of Samadhi Buddha is very fine. Determine to get into Samma Samadhi, the right, perfect concentration, complete concentration. Then, with that determination, you must program your mind. You say, I will sit there. He says, watch the breath in and out. No, watch in and out. then suddenly your mind gone out. You have not programmed your mind to come back. So it may not come back. It might go from here to another place, another place, another place. So before you sit, it's important to have the right frame of mind. Program your mind, condition your mind, and say to yourself, I will sit now. I will now develop samadhi. And I'll focus my attention on this one point above my outer lip. I'll breathe in and breathe out normally. I will not follow my breath here and there. Just observe the breath in and out through that point. Any thoughts, any distraction that comes, I will bring back my attention to this breath. Say to yourself, condition your mind clearly. Then, even though the mind goes out, because you have programmed it, it will naturally come back again. You try, it will happen. But your mind must be clear when you condition that mind. But if you go in quietly and just see others sitting down and you just sit beside and look at him, how he does it, you will go to sleep the next moment. You see others sleeping, you also sleep. Others moving, you also move, because your mind, you have not got the right frame of mind. So the right frame of mind before you meditate is important. Okay? So develop this, in and out, till you get to the 4 jhanas. I have explained to you the quality or the characteristics of the first jhana, but there is no need to try to look out for them. This theory is not important for you, because if you can observe the vertical rise of your mind or consciousness, feeling of it, you get there, even without those knowledge. But the knowledge is useful in case you want to check yourself. In the first jhana, there are these 5 jhana factors. In the second jhana, the first 2, vitaka vichara, application of thought and sustaining of thought, no longer there. You have only 3 factors. Piti, sukhang, ekaggata. That rapturous feeling is still there. The sukhang, the feeling, the pleasant sensation, the feeling of ease is still there. And one-pointedness is there. That is why we say in the second jhana, you don't feel your breath anymore. That's why if you start looking for the breath, then you come down to the first jhana. You don't get to the second. So when you pitch your mind up, when the mental level goes up, then just focus your mind. If there is no breath, don't worry. Don't worry. So just observe. You will experience the still calm. The calmness, the peace is of a better quality, fine, more subtle than the first jhana. Then, the third jhana, no more piti. So those people who cling to piti, who cling to this kind of rapturous feeling, they like to move. Oh, very nice, very nice. They never get beyond the second jhana. Don't cling. Let go. Let go. Let go. Then when the piti goes, then you have only sukhang ekaggata. Your body is at ease, mind is at ease, and your mind is one point. Even that feeling, that pleasant sensation of ease, of relax, that is sukha. Even that you don't cling on to. Because in the fourth jhana, that pleasant feeling, that sukha also goes away. Your mind is left with ekaggata, one pointer. Of course, by then if you try to focus your attention here, you cannot find the point here. The point will now be on your mental screen, one point. Right? So, these are how you can recognize getting into the jhana, first, second, third, fourth. Right? There are people, there are teachers who say, who have made these jhanas a very big deal and say that it's very difficult to attain to jhanas, and that some even go to the extent of discouraging people to get into jhanas and say that it's dangerous. Of course, when you sharpen your knife in order to cut vegetables or meat, that knife is very useful. At the same time, it can be quite dangerous. You can cut your hand. Depends on how you use it. Right? In the same manner, if you sharpen your mind, you can use and abuse it. So you must know very clearly from the start, when you develop your meditation, for what purpose? If you think, I want to develop my meditation to develop my power, so that I can read other people's minds, so that I can beat the traffic jam, I can fly to work, so that I can walk through the wall and beat that David Copperfield or something, then you may be heading for some problem. Because as long as you have craving, and aversion, these defilements in your mind, you have those powers. You are only going to show off these powers to get paid, to get power, and then when people make you angry, you may even abuse your power. But these are not the real purposes. The jhanas, if you have from the very beginning, from the very start, to develop your samatha, samma samadhi, perfect concentration, for the purpose of developing insight, for the purpose of developing that vipassana or insight, to understand, to realize the true nature of yourself. That is the purpose that you do. So, these jhanas we have found even with lay people, working people, within a fairly short time. In our experience, we have found people, working people who come to see us. They practice every evening. They spend 1 or 2 hours with us for a few days, consistently. And then we advise them, after you practice this evening, go back home tomorrow, practice in the morning. And then in the night again you come. In between the day, just live in mindfulness. As much as you can, do your work, be mindful, don't let your mind go here and there. Whatever you do, be aware of it. Be aware of what you are doing. Practice that kind of mindfulness. And as much as you can, if your mind is not occupied with anything, observe the breath, breathe in and breathe out, so that your mind gets used to. And when in your next sitting, you will find it easier to focus your mind. And we have found within few days, within less than a week, there are people who are able to get into the first, the second, the third. There are a few who have even gone up to the fourth. Of course, all these things really depend. I'm not saying that everybody can get into this. A lot will depend on what you have done in the past, how you have developed in the past. But the very fact that you are all gathered here, so eagerly wanting to listen to the practice of Samatha, Vipassana, it means that you have some liking for it. This liking, you don't get it immediately. Must have some thing in the past that has conditioned you. Understand? So don't think, although you may be a starter, you may be a beginner in meditation, don't think that I am only a beginner. No, you may be beginner in this lifetime, but you might have practiced to reach to quite great heights in your past. Understand? And this is exactly what we observe some people. They appear to be beginners. They sit. We tell them to sit half an hour. They sit 1.5 hours. We tell them, how do you feel? Nothing. I don't feel anything now. Calm. Are you calm and peaceful? Calm, peaceful, nothing, no feeling, no breath, nothing. They have gone beyond that. But they are not aware of it. They are not aware of it. So we tell them, now get back to your practice now. Get back to your practice and follow this instruction. Look carefully. Don't let it go higher than, Sometimes you feel the thing is going up. That is your developing power. So, this is something that is not that difficult. Of course, you must put an effort. And the effort must be one of a continuity. If jhanas are not, you can get it, you can lose it also. Understand? If you don't practice it for some time, you will lose. Then since you know how to get in again, you can get in again. Now why? We have faced their confidence in this method. Because you find very clearly in the text what the Buddha said. Now, when the Buddha was attaining Mahaparinibbana, in the last few moments of his life, what happened? Now, when the Buddha was attaining Mahaparinibbana, in the last few moments of his life, what happened? He entered. How did he attain? How did he pass away? He said how he developed his mind to the first, to the second, to the third, to the fourth, up to the eighth jhana, and bringing down to the first, and then again first, second, third, fourth, and then he passed. That is why we say the Buddha had the great disease, Mahaparinibbana. Buddha did not die like ordinary beings, have to struggle for their breath, do not know what state of consciousness also they are in. So the Buddha has done that very clearly. And when we read in the text, there's a definite system of getting into the first, second, third, and fourth. Because in many suttas, in many discourses, in the Tripitaka, in the Buddhist scripture, you find that the followers of the Buddha, after listening to the teachings of the Buddha, they who have gained faith and confidence, they will go to the Buddha, and the Buddha will take them to some quiet places, and in this quietness, they start to develop. Very clearly the sutta says, they develop Patama, Dutiya, Tatiya, Chaturtha jhana. They develop first, second, third, fourth jhana. And the next sentence, usually in the text, it says that soon they realize the truth. They realize the truth. That means they realize different stages of sainthood. Seeing the truth, seeing anicca, dukkha, anatta, realizing anicca, dukkha, anatta at its different levels. So, the text you will find enough support for this practice. The other thing is this. Many people develop jhanas, but they do not know the state of mind. And they tend to stay for a long period of time. Sometimes 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Sometimes they get the impression that the longer you sit, the better it is. At least, if not others, I had that impression. So I learned how to sit long time. When I get up, I feel very calm. It stays on for some time, but after that it's gone. That's the nature of jhanas, you see. So jhanas are certain factors, their absorptions are factors which you have conditioned your mind, and it does not last. It's also impermanent state. So, develop first, second, third, fourth jhana. When you are able to develop first, second, third, fourth, it means that you have gained mastery over your mind. You are now able to control your mind, and therefore your thoughts are also controlled. Now when your thoughts are controlled, your mind is clear. Not so many thoughts. There may be a few thoughts coming up here and there. You can see it very clearly. And that's the time when you develop your Vipassana. Because now Vipassana, pasana is from the word pasati, to see with a clear mind. Vipassana, the word vi, the prefix means to see it in a special manner. What special manner? To see in the terms of anicca, dukkha, anatta, the characteristics of existence. So now, After you have developed the four jhanas, bring down your mind again to the third, to the second, to the first, and the zero level, the normal functioning mind. At the normal functioning mind, you develop your Vipassana. How do you develop your Vipassana? The first lesson for you to learn is Nama Rupa. Nama is what you call mind or name. Rupa is form or body. Now, how do you observe that? During a retreat, we would normally advise the yogi, the practitioner, to get into the four jhanas in the morning and evening and live during the day, live outside of jhana. No more samadhi, but just be aware of bodily activity. If you are sitting down, just be aware you are sitting down and see in your mindfulness, you will see that there is an instruction. Your mind gives the order, the thought to sit, and then your body carries out. Sit. Even now, when you want to move, there is a thought that says, hey, and then move. Then your body moves. Now, the order comes. If the order comes to your mind, it says, I have had enough, now I must go. Your body will come up and you will go. That thought is the mind. The action that follows, the body action, is that body or the form that goes. The sound that you hear is form, is rupa. The hearing of it, conscious of hearing of it, that is nama. So you develop nama, rupa, just knowing mind and form, knowing as it arrives, not necessary to label them as such. Just as it arrives, you just be aware of it. When your hand moves, just observe. Otherwise, you walk. And when you walk mindfully, slowly, you just observe how the orders give to move, your leg moves. Stop, it stops. Turn, it turns. Right? Observe it as it happens, mindfully. That's what mindfulness is for. Right? Then, after you can see the idea, this exercise for you to see in terms of nama rupa, so that you do not have that idea that there is a person, that there is an individual that is doing the work for you. It's only your mind and body, it's only your mind and form. Then the next step is, if you can see mind and body clearly, you will also be able to see cause and effect. The thought, there is a cause. When you think of something, a cause, as an effect, your body moves. You feel some sensation, some unpleasant sensation, some tension. That feeling is a cause. Then you start thinking, effect. Right? So the sound is a cause, hearing of it is an effect. After you hear, another thought comes, you want to hear some more of that sound. The hearing is a cause, the thought is an effect. It becomes a cycle of cause and effect. So look and see everything cause, effect, cause, effect. After you can see that clearly, then next step is you will see that the cause arises and ceases. The effect also have a reason and cease. So you see how cause, effect, rising and falling, rising and falling, rising and falling. Anything that you do, you just observe rising and falling. Even you walk, you see your leg rising and falling, nothing. Not to condition your mind not to see rising, falling, no. That is, you are conditioning your own mind. But to do it with a silent mind, how to get the silent mind? Why do people need the labeling? Because their mind is not silent. How to get that silent mind? It is after you have developed the jhanas, after you have got to the fourth jhana and bring it down, you have control. You have control over your mind. If you want to silence it, it will become silent. Then you can observe it clearly. So this is how you can see your bodily activities very clearly. When you see the rising and falling, then you begin to see Udaya Vaya, Udaya Vaya, Udaya Vaya. In one thought, not in two thoughts. In one thought is Udaya Vaya. Change, anicca, anicca. This is how you realize anicca. Now when you develop to observe Nama Rupa, cause and effect, rising and falling, your mind will start again and another development, moving upwards and upwards. This time not jhana, not the samatha samadhi. This time is the Vipassana samadhi. Vipassana samadhi is the insight, the concentrated insight, and the ability to penetrate, the ability to realize anicca, dukkha, anatta, which is not so easy for your normal concentration to see, to realize. Even though you may be able to understand, able to accept at a conceptual level, you are not able to realize, you're not able to see change with this normal functioning mind. It is when you are able to pitch the mind, that insight, samadhi, Vipassana samadhi, by observing things in terms of change. Mind, body, cause, effect, rising and falling, then. So how do you mature? To mature this Vipassana samadhi, we come back again to the breath. That is why I told you just now. Some people say when you practice breathing in and out, you are only doing samatha. No, that is absolutely wrong. Because at this stage, after you have developed the four jhanas, you come back to develop Vipassana, and after you have trained your mind to see everything around you through your eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, whatever you hear, whatever contact that you have, it's rising, falling. Then you come back again to your breath. This time you don't focus your attention on one point. This time you observe the breath rising and falling, and that's how your Vipassana samadhi reaches to a height. And even then you see rising and falling. Then what happens is, at that stage, when you see your mind rising, and suddenly rising, falling, then you become aware that now your mind is matured to realize, to get into the stream. then what you do is you take a determination, you take a resolution before the Buddha, under the Bodhi tree. These are very good places. Go because it gives you that clear inspiration. Then, paying homage to the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, you make that aspiration, that resolution in you, saying that if I have developed the wisdom to realize impermanence, let me get into the stream. Let me be a stream winner. Then what happens is, observe your breath. At that one point, observe it in terms of rising and falling, rising and falling. And then see what happens. Everything you see is rising, falling, rising, falling, rising, falling, and suddenly you will experience the stillness, the calm and quietness, the peace that you have not experienced before. Then we ask you again to go and make another resolution that if you have realized, if you have entered the stream, then determine that if I have entered the stream, let me enjoy the friction, the bliss of friction for 20 minutes or half an hour. And then you sit there without meditating, without even focusing your attention on one point. Just sit there and see what happens. If you have truly entered the stream, you must be able to get the same experience that you have experienced before, and you get that again. By that, you will know that you have attained to that friction. You can repeat this again and again, again and again throughout the day and enjoy the friction of the stream entry. This is a very clear path, brother. If your thoughts are silent, if you are able to silence the mind 50%, then you are able to reduce your anger, craving by 50%. Because anger and craving, they are habits, conditioned by your mind. It's because when you start thinking, you cannot stop your thoughts start thinking and thinking and thinking. That's how you get more and more craving. When you see something nice, you don't stop there. The thought that arises, the 5 aggregates that arises, you see it, you cling to it because it's very pleasant. Then you think you have seen something before too, more pleasant. Then you indulge, go on, wanting to see more, like that. So, in the same manner, when something is unpleasant, when you see something unpleasant, eye consciousness arises, conditions the thought that arises, and with that thought, you keep on thinking and thinking and say, this is not the first time that you shouted at me. Yesterday you did the same thing, day before yesterday, last week, last year, before we were married, and you pick up all right down. That's what we call going to the past, dwelling in the past. As you dwell in the past, more thoughts, you multiply your thoughts, you multiply your anger. That's how your voice starts to get louder, 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 and the vibrations start to get until it explodes. So, it's very clear. Craving and aversion, craving tendency, your desire, is not an innate, intrinsic quality of the mind. If it is an intrinsic, if it is an innate quality of the mind, then there is no salvation for all of us. Because there is no way out. but because the Buddha says, Buddha realizing the nature of the mind, the Buddha says, Papasarang chittang bhikkhave. The Buddha says, oh monks, the Buddha says, the mind is luminous, the mind is bright. But it is because of your defiling tendencies to your greed, hatred, delusion that has clouded and made your mind so dull and so dark. So, if you want to get out of suffering, then control the thoughts. Learn how to control, learn how to silence this thought. How do you silence this thought? Every thought that arises, see the thought that arises has the 5 aggregates. Any thought that arises, the 5 aggregates also arise in that thought. Do you realize this? You think of anything. Think of your home. People in your home. You create a thought. That thought, the home, the house, the people in there, they are all form, isn't it? They are form. That is rupa. That's what you call rupa. Then, there is feeling. Immediately you think of your home now, you will have slightly better feeling because you can sit on the sofa. Some pleasant sensation may come to you. Feeling arises. That's what you call feeling, vedana. There is a recognition. Your ability to cognize the form that appears in your mind, that sanya. You are able to remember where the sofa is, that sanya, that perception. Thought you create more thoughts based on that feeling, based on this thought, that sankhara. And your ability, your consciousness, your awareness of that thought is consciousness, vijnana. So in your thought, in any thought that arises, there arises the 5 aggregates, panchakanda. That's how the Buddha, that's how dukkha arises. The Buddha defines suffering, dukkha. How the Buddha defines dukkha? The Buddha says, jatipi dukkham, jarapi dukkham, vyadipi dukkham, maranampi dukkham. Buddha says, birth, old age, sickness is death. Death is suffering. Associate with people whom you love, conditions which are pleasant, and you have to separate from them. That is suffering. That is dukkha. Associate with somebody whom you don't like, conditions which you don't like, but you cannot run away. You have to stay on with them. That is also dukkha. You expect something and you don't get it. That also is dukkha. But these explanations of dukkha is only for the men in the street to understand. It is not the profound explanation of dukkha. Later the Buddha defines Sankitena Panchupadana Khanda dukkha. Buddha says, in short, in brief, I say, the 5 grasping aggregates are dukkha. In other words, 5 grasping aggregates. When you think, the 5 aggregates arises. And when these 5 aggregates, grasping aggregates, condition another thought, So the word dukkha does not simply mean suffering in terms of physical pain, in terms of some misery or agony. No. It goes beyond that. It's a state of unsatisfactoriness. So, the 5 grasping aggregates. So, when we are doing this stage, the second, after getting into the stream, then we observe the thoughts. Any thought that arises, we analyze the thought into the 5 aggregates and see how the 5 aggregates rise and fall. Rise and fall. Then the thought is dispelled off. Then what happens is, from the time one thought arises to the next thought, the gap becomes bigger and bigger, bigger and bigger, and then you experience more and more silence in you. That's how you dispel thoughts. By analyzing it into the 5 aggregates and see how rising and falling is gone. Then your mind becomes quieter. Up to that extent, 50% you're able to control. By then you're able to control your thoughts. When the thought arises, when you see the thought goes away. If you don't want you want to stop thinking, you just stop thinking. Right? Then your mind becomes matured, and again the mind is activated to see the rising and falling at another level. Here again, we tell you to take your attention to your breath, breathing in, breathing out, and watch rising, falling of your breath. Then again you pick up your Vipassana Samadhi to a greater height, and then anything that happens around you, at any time, this Vipassana Samadhi that is pitched to that level can realize unsaid. We have come across people every day, practically every day, over the last 2 months when I was in Sri Lanka before coming here. We saw how people getting into realizing the truth at different stages. One woman was looking out from the monastery just across the street. There is a cemetery. So she saw the cemetery, then she suddenly thought, the thought arises in the mind, we are born and die, birth and death, birth and death, birth and death. Each thought that arises, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. Then after that, she got so excited, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. Then after that, her mind suddenly silent. Suddenly a stillness comes up. She realized at another level, another girl was picking up the body leaves on the ground. And she picked up, this is a young body leaf, and this one is slightly matured, and this one brownish, this one got old, and this one decayed. She was just looking at that. Then suddenly the thought arises in her, young, old, young, old age, sickness, death. We all subject to birth, old age, sickness, death, old age, sickness, death, old age, sickness, death. We begin to see the truth of understanding. Now, this is not thinking, not at a thinking level. This is the realizing, the There is a state of realizing because the Vipassana Samadhi has been pitched to a higher level, you can penetrate through that. And with this realization comes the bliss, the peace of mind. The mind is settled down to a greater level of peace and calm. Then you realize. After that, you can tell them whatever state that they have realized. Then tell them to go and take resolution. If you have so attained to this state of wisdom, then let me realize the friction. Then after that, again you say, if I have realized the friction, let me experience the bliss of friction for half an hour. And you say, go there. Don't do anything and you will experience the bliss again. By that, you will be able to confer. Now this is the only means by which you are able to confirm for yourself of your attainment. Now, if you have not developed, if your mind is not matured to that state, even though you make the resolution, you will not experience it. You all can try afterwards and say, if I have attained to the three mantra or the second state of sainthood, let me enjoy the friction. You can say that 100 times and see whether you experience any blissful sensation or not. You see, not possible. But if you have developed it, you will experience it. This is a very scientific method. That is why the master that has shown us very clearly this path, he said, this method is a very clear path, a very clear-cut method, I say, a very scientific method. There is no mumbo-jumbos, there is no rites and rituals. All what people are doing in the name of Buddhism, they are merely rites and rituals. What the Buddha had taught is a very clear path how to overcome suffering. How to overcome suffering? Overcome craving, overcome your desire. How to overcome desire? Silence your mind. Control your thoughts and go on silencing your mind. After the second stage of sainthood, where you are able to at least silence 50% of your mind, you go on silencing further and further until your mind settles down to a level where no more thoughts arise, unless you want to think. If you want to think, your mind still can think. But as soon as you think, there are no more disturbing, there's no more proliferating thoughts. Your mind is still. Then, after that is the third stage of sainthood, because having stilled your mind completely of its thoughts, then there's no more desire, no more craving, no more aversion. Then the next stage is to observe the six bases, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the mind, and to examine them. How do you examine them? You examine them in terms. Whenever you see something, that eye is a visual object, it comes into contact with your eye, the eye consciousness arises, that consciousness condition a thought. And you see that it is nothing but a series of cause and effect, that there is absolutely no I, no mind doing it. There is no I that is seeing, there is only a series of cause and effect. When you are able to see that, you break the concept of the I and the mind, the most subtle concept of I and mind. And then, after that, when you are able to see through the 6 phases, and you see there's absolutely, you break the concept of I and mind. The next step is through the 7 factors of enlightenment. Let the 7 factors of enlightenment mature in your mind until you realize the void. The void. It is this void. When you see how the void is, you realize non-self. Anicca, dukkha, anatta is realized at that point, and where you begin to see, if at all you observe any feeling, there is now no more feeler, there may be suffering, no more sufferer. At that point, when you realize the void, and beyond that is the realization of Nibbana. Nibbana is something that is realizable within this lifetime, brothers and sisters. Don't think that you have to wait until you die to realize Nibbana, or don't think that you have to wait for many, many years, many, many lifetimes. Don't think that you are not good enough to realize Nibbana. If you so make the determination, because the sealer, what you are now, you might have done all sorts of bad things, all sorts of immoral practices, but that was the past. That's not what you are now. What you are now depends on you, depends on your mind. If you so determined to develop the heights, to attain the highest goal, then that is what you are. That is the person that you are, and you work towards that. Of course, if you have done those unwholesome actions in the past, those bad karmas will be waiting to ripen. But you must do your part. Go on further developing your mind until you can liberate your mind. Liberate your mind from what? Liberate your mind. Detach from the body. Detach from all material things. Your mind, you can live in the society, you can live, but your mind is detached. If you lose something, that's it. Your mind is not disturbed. If tomorrow we say that you have to cut your eyes, you have to cut your leg because, it is having some problem there, it's a cut. There is no more worry, there is no more fear. Why people worry? Because of the attachment, because of the clinging. That is why. So liberation, the liberated mind is one that is free from attachment. That's why. There is no suffering. Even though there is the body. The body may experience pain. The body may go through all kinds of diseases. But the mind that is not attached to the body has no worries, have no fear, have no suffering. Okay, brothers and sisters, I have dwelt this, I think, sufficiently. Then by this, that may you all realize the bliss of Nibbana one day, as soon as possible. If you so make the determination, then you will come nearer and nearer to it, and that you will see. This time, the era, the time that we live in this period, it's still a good period. It's not good for some people, but good for us. Good for those people who want to practice Dhamma, because you can see very clearly. On the one hand, there is extreme of joy and extreme of sense gratification. On the other hand, there is extreme of suffering in this world. While you are listening now, brothers and sisters, hundreds, thousands and millions of people are dying without food, waiting for when the next bomb is going to fall on them. Natural catastrophe, famine, no proper clothes to wear, cold, some countries, killing them. But you are still. You say you have no dukkha. Dukkha is there. All the time dukkha is there. You may not feel pain, but dukkha, the unsatisfactoriness is there. If you say why, I have no dukkha, I am smiling, I can smile. I can show you how I smile. I will ask you, how long can you smile? You say, look, I am laughing now. I say, how long can you laugh? You go on and laugh and see what happens in the end. You see, if you keep on laughing and you don't come back, you know who will come. So, it's an unsatisfactory state. That is why we say even the worldly happiness that you are enjoying is unsatisfactory, is dukkha. People don't realize this. That's why they say Buddhism is very pessimistic religion. Everything is, suffering. No. Not everything suffering. Something Buddha says you can enjoy also. Buddha talk about how lay people enjoy. I must tell you later on. You see? But you yourself know how you enjoy. You have money, you have car, you can spend others. These are all your enjoyment, isn't it? But it doesn't last long. The same thing, the same house, the same car, the same people that give you happiness, they are the same thing that give you trouble, headache, heartaches, all sorts of aches they give you. And this is the nature of worldly happiness. It is unsatisfactory. There is another kind. Haven't you seen enough of sorrow and suffering? If you go on and see again and again, this was what I was taught from the time I left the material career. My teacher took me around the world, certain parts of the world, and just quietly observing what the world, the real television of life. No television, but I go to the marketplace, I go to the park, and we sit down and we just observe people running about. What are they doing? What do they want in life? Then my teacher asked me, what do you want in life? I started questioning myself, what do I want in life? I think any sensible person will want peace and happiness. Then again, the concept of happiness. There are two kinds of happiness, worldly happiness and spiritual kind of happiness that does not depend on material, on worldly things. That's what you try to develop your contentment. You sit quietly like this. No excitement, no background music, no shows. But you still have peaceful and happy and contented inside, right? No refreshment also. But you still have your contentment. Develop more and more of these things until you can sit quietly in an empty heart. Peace, peaceful. Right. Now, would you like to experience this peace, a little bit of this peace, right? We will sit for another half an hour, or maybe 15 minutes. We will sit quietly, keeping your body in an upright position. If you want to stretch, you can stand up, right? And just stretch yourself a little bit if you like.